Okay, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah Akwadash, and double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, Shalom to the hopeful leg. Now, I'm gonna play this video real quick, right, and I'm going to get into it. All right, so as you see, it basically went through the evolution of AI, right, and how it progressed so quickly. Now, I'm not sure how accurate the actual timing is, but based on what I can remember, it seems pretty accurate, and yeah, that's how it is. It developed to where it's now you really have to have be more of trained with AI, right? Have that trained eye to really spot it nowadays, and it's only getting better, or should I say worse. But yeah, this is going into the miracles that they're performing on the left-handed side with their technology, their AI, their programs, and so on and so forth. This is the power that the Lord had given them. Right, again, these are their miracles, right? Look at this. This is AI. See, now with this being a frozen image, you can't even tell that's AI. Now, when you're watching it move and stuff, right, then you can kind of sort of see like, okay, yeah, that's AI generated. But here again, now that it's frozen, this just looks like a plain old image, and soon this is the miracles and stuff they're going to be using to deceive they're going to start painting false narratives, right, using AI and the imagery and stuff, right? They might have videos of brothers doing shit that they never did, just so they can demonize, but also again to deceive, ultimately into taking that chip, right, the MOTB, because that's what it's all boiling down to, but there's actually a series on Netflix that I watched recently, right, that shows a lot of this, right? The miracles that they're going to be bringing through the means of technology, right? And I say miracles, quote unquote, that they're breaking through the means of technology, in order to try and be like the Most High, right? Because through their technology, what are they trying to do? They're trying to, well, as I said, be like the Most High, but they're trying to gain the everlasting life, the spiritual power, which it wouldn't be spiritual for them, right? They're trying to mimic the knowledge of the Lord through their technology. They're trying to mimic the promises that the Lord promised us through their technology, right? Because they gave away the birthright. So now they're trying to build their own. Scriptures say they want to be like the Most High. So let's grab that. This is Isaiah chapter 14. Isaiah chapter 14, we start here at verse 11. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 11, thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. Thy pomp going into what? Their pride, right? They're going to be brought low. It says to the grave, because they're going to be brought low, right? That high stature that they're on is all coming down, right? When the Lord returns, he's going to bring them down physically, mentally, everything. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee, right? Because that's how it is, right? When with a dead body, you're brought to the grave. What? Your body starts to get inhabited by, creatures and stuff like that. When you're buried, the worms and the bugs crawling throughout your carcass. Verse 12, thou art fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning star. How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weakest the nations? Now, it's not saying, going into, Lucifer, another name for the devil, quote unquote, as these Christians and stuff be teaching, like he was banished from heaven and so on and so forth. No, Lucifer, speaking of Esau, right, the light bearer, son of the morning, how art thou cut down to the ground, right? They fallen from heaven, meaning this is their heaven, right? This world we live in is their heaven. That's why they're the ones who are, prospering in life, right? They're the ones living the good life, quote unquote, because this is their heaven. This is their kingdom, right? But they're falling from heaven because, again, when the Lord returns, he's taking all this shit down, right? Which didst weaken the nations, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High, right? So they're saying how they're going to reach above the Lord, right? They're going to be like the Most High and go further than him, right? And it's ultimately going into their pride, but that's why the Lord's going to bring the destruction, right? To bring that down. Scriptures say pride isn't even for men. And here it is. They're so proud that they're boasting to be like the one and only true living God. Let's grab here Ecclesiasticus chapter 10, verse 18. Pride was not made for men, nor furious anger for them that are born of a woman. Right? So pride was not made for men. Why? You're a man, right? You're immortal. You can't control anything for real. So why are you proud? You could die to the simplest thing. You don't hold any power. It's not for you to be proud. So to sit there and not only be proud, but to boast yourself against the Most High, man, they got some serious judgment coming behind that. But not only that, all the things that they've done just since they were living, right? Esau, Edom, the devil, so they want to be like the Lord, right? That's why they're bringing all of these quote unquote miracles, right? It's just left-handed witchcraft, left-handed sorcery, through means of what? Their technology, right? They're going to try to achieve godlike status through their technology. And that's why they're trying to bring everything digital. They're pushing towards their system, right? The NWO. Let's get the book of Revelations, chapter 13. We start here at verse 11. There's Revelation chapter 13, verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now this is specifically dealing with who? Here, America, Babylon the Great. And it says, and he had two horns like a lamb, right? Going into the Democrats, and the Republicans, those two horns. He had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, right? Spake as a dragon, going into their beast-like ways, right? Their destruction, that draconian way of life. Dealing with draconian, how you had the lawmaker, for lack of better words, right? Draco, where his laws basically, if you commit the smallest minute thing, you'd be put to death, right? So say in a normal law, let's say now if you were to steal a 10-cent bubble gum from a store, right, the most you'd get is a slap on the wrist, right? They probably won't even say shit to you. Whereas draconian law, you'd be put to death, right? But that's the spirit of Esau, right? Bloodshed, killing, murdering. That's what they love. So it says, and he had 2 horns like a lamb. What is a lamb? When you think of a lamb, you think of, meekness, docile, calm, nice, soothe. So they came as a lamb, but they spake as a dragon, Salakia, going into their deception. They come to you all nice like, speaking, let's grab Psalms chapter 55, verse 21, right? Psalms chapter 55, verse 21, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart, right? So again, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. They were like a lamb, right? All nice, they come nice, and we got the deals and stuff, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords, right? They spake as a dragon, because that's truly what they want. They come to shed blood. They come to destroy. They come to take over. Going back to Revelation, verse 12, and he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, right? Being the ancient Roman Empire, in which now this is just a revival of that. And causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, right? Which, starting with what? That fire coming down, those 2 atomic bombs that they dropped, right, over there in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? They call them Fat Man and Little Boy. Fat Man hit Nagasaki and Hiroshima got hit by a little boy. But again, what? And he doeth great wonders. That's considered a great wonder. That on the left-handed side though, that was the what? They were given that power of the sword. The Lord gave them that intellect to create wonders like that. That's why they have all of this high-tech military equipment, the jets and the nukes, so on and so forth. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. Again, going into the miracles, quote unquote, that they're bringing through the way of their technology, that's going to deceive and persuade people to take that mark, to worship the image. And he deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, right? Going into that ancient Roman system being brought back, which had the wound by a sword and did live, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed, right? And how are they given power? So like, how are they, giving life to the image of that beast? They're doing this through technology. You see how they're trying to push a technological, what's the word? Revolution, right? They want everything to go digital, right? And one of the main things that they're using is this AI. And again, what? They're going to deceive many into basically worshiping that image, into believing in their system, right? Because let's say you have cancer, they tell you, okay, you take this chip, right? The mark of the beast, it'll solve that cancer. The stuff that seemed impossible without the quote unquote chip, right? It's possible now. It's a miracle. That's how they're going to deceive many into getting on board. See, but us, we don't look forward to those miracles. We look forward to the true miracles that the Lord's going to bring for his people, right? Those that believe on him in these times. We're not going to trust in Egypt, as scriptures, speak about. And he had power, to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Right? They're going to persecute us, right? Those who aren't giving in, those who are putting their faith and their trust in the Lord. Verse 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And again, that mark being the RFID microchip, which is going to be a actual physical chip implanted inside you. When a charagma. Just look into this word. Look into the word mark. Right? Greek charagma. A stamp, an imprinted mark. It says of the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as the badge of the followers of the anti-Messiah, the mark branded upon horses, thing carved, sculpture, graven work of idolatrous images, and it's going to be an imprinted mark, right? It's going to be graven inside of your skin, a literal physical thing. And that no man might buy or sell save he that had that mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Right? So basically, those of us who don't take this mark, we're going to be ostracized, right? Outcast from society. We won't be able to, go to the store and go grab food. Why? Because we don't have the mark to even do so. And not only that, but sooner or later, it's going to become to where, okay, you don't have the mark, then you're no longer viewed as a human being, right? So you can die, and that's what's coming. But we have our faith and trust in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, right? That we're going to be able to eat good. We're going to be able to we're going to be taken care of. We're going to be protected during those times. Let's grab Isaiah. (65) verse 13. Isaiah chapter 65 verse 13. It says, therefore thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, my servants shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servants shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servants shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. Behold, my servants shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirits. So the Lord's servants are going to be taken care of. The elect, his remnant, are going to be taken care of. And that's what we truly believe and have faith in. Right? So we're not going to bow down to this image, receive his mark. No, none of that. So, and he causeth all, both small and great. Verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell or save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom, right? Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Right? When you go into the number 666, it's chi psi stigma. Right, chi psi stigma, and let him pronounce that.
Strong's G 5516. Chi psi stigma. Chi psi stigma.
Right. Now it says 666. Yeah, the meaning, which is the basis of much vain speculation. Now, when you go into that last 6 stigma. Right, it goes into like a piercing. Here in the Greek, stigma, a mark pricked in or branded upon the body. To ancient Oriental usage, slaves and soldiers bore the name or the stamp of their master or commander, branded or pricked, cut into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belonged to. And there were even some devotees who stamped themselves in this way with a token of their gods, right? So that last 6 going into stigma is going into the same thing, right? That mark, that piercing, that engraving, that, you know, that cutting into the flesh to receive that sihib, you know. And as it says here, to ancient Oriental usage, slaves and soldiers bore the name of their stamp or their master or commander, branded, prick, cut into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belonged to. And that's why if you take this mark, you're through, right? Because basically you're saying, you know, dealing with Israel, right? You're saying they're your master, right? You're here with Esau, Edom. You belong to them, not the Most High, right? Not Yahweh, not Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. So you take that, you're completely denying the Lord and siding with the enemy. So yeah, you will be destroyed for that. You know, you're going to take part in that lake of fire. Right, let's grab here, Revelations 14. Let's get straight to the point. We can start at verse 9. Doom for worshippers of the beast, right? If you worship the beast, worshiping his system, the image it created. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the lambs. Right? So when the Lord comes back and he's bringing that judgment, you're taking part in that. You know that as it says, tormented with fire and brimstone, that's going to be when these missiles, right, when the Lord put the spirit on all these other nations to launch their nukes, you know, in their arsenal. Well, his arsenal, right, the Lord's arsenal, because these are the weapons of his indignation. When he puts the spirit on these other nations to launch those at America, guess who's going to be down here to feel it? Those who worship the beast, right? Those who receive his mark, those who worship the image. You know, Lord willing, we be a part of the elect that gets beamed up into his chariots, right? The so-called UFOs, so that we escape that destruction. Let's jump ahead to here, verse 9, Salakia, chapter 19, verse 20. Doom of the beast and false prophet. It's Revelation chapter 19, verse 20. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet. Now the beast, again, mainly dealing with America, but also what? You know, America, NATO, the EU, these European nations. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet, meaning the Roman Catholic Church, that wrought miracles. Again, these miracles, man, that they're going to use to, well, as it says, miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast. Again, they're going to use these miracles through the way of their technology to deceive people, to get them to get on board with taking this mark, man. Right? Your grandmother has come down with a severe illness, right? Which there's no cure. But if you take this mark, this chip, we can have, you know, we'll be able to work internally to cure it. Now grandma got the chip, right? And there's gonna be stuff like that. But also, as we just read, people are gonna want to eat. People are gonna want to sell. They're gonna want to survive, right? And when that mark becomes mandatory, there ain't no surviving if you don't have it, unless you're a part of the Lord's elect, right? Unless you're a servant of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, which not many people are, you know. But continuing, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. Again, that being, mainly dealing with here, America, when these missiles hit, right? But as well as the fire raining down from the chariots of the Lord. You can't forget that, because those missiles, the flames on those missiles, not going to have nothing on those flames, man. Even though, the flame on those nukes, yeah, they're going to do something, right? But we talking about the Lord's technology, quote unquote, right? You could just imagine the type of heat coming from those. There was a video going around not too long ago where they showed a chariot getting hit by one of their missiles, and the shit bounced off, right? The chariot just kept on moving, and you seen the like pieces of the chariot continue on moving with the chariot itself, right? Going to show you that ain't no regular vehicle, right? This ain't no man-made technology. Verse 21, and the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, right? Going into Yahushai, sitting upon that horse, being his chariot, right? Because you're going to have, again, the judgment the Lord's bringing. You're going to have death angels going around taking people out, but also what? The multitude of men who are going to try to, the military who were gathered, during World War III, when the Lord cracked the skies and come back, they're going to try and fight back against them. We read that in 2nd Esdras 13, but it says, which sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. The fowls going into like the birds, the vultures, the crows, so on and so forth, right? Those type of animals, the scavengers, right, filled with their flesh, right? Because the Lord promised them a feast. The flesh of these kings, these rulers, right? The people that, the Lord's coming to judge. These animals gonna be eating good when the Lord's through with them. But let's close it out here in Revelation 20, right? Dealing with the judgment and the lake of fire, right? This is Revelation chapter 20, verse 11, judgment at the throne of the Most High. And I saw a great white horse, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. Again, Salaki, I said horse. And I saw a great white throne, right, that being the throne of the Lord, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was no place, and there was found no place for them, right? Because the earth and the heaven, what is going to be renewed? It's not that the earth is going to be destroyed. It's just going to be renewed. It's going to be a new heaven, a new earth, right? We read that in the we might as well just get it. New heaven and earth, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea, right? Because the Lord is going to renew everything. It's going to be made better, right? Because this is the kingdom of heaven being brought to the earth, so everything is going to be renewed. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before the Most High, and the books were open, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. Right? Now, these books is just, not literal books, but going into the judgment that the Lord is handing out, right? Those written in the book of life being the Lord's elect, and those not, the non-elect, right? The rest of the 2/3, right? Mainly dealing with Israel, but ultimately the rest of the world. So the elect, they're going to be the ones who are, received up into the chariots, right? The first fruits of the kingdom of heaven, right? The first ones to get the new bodies, the first ones to inherit eternal life, the first ones to become joint heirs with Yahushai, so on and so forth. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works, right? Because again, This is everything. Everyone is going to have to stand before the seat of the Lord, right? We can grab that here in Isaiah chapter 3 verse 10. Slack, you're not Isaiah. I forgot this. Here, 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 10. Quick view. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 9. Wherefore we labor that, whether present or absent, we may be accepted of him. Right? So basically, whether alive or dead, the Lord, we may be accepted of the Lord. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Hamashiach, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. Right? And that's what it's going into, about the Lord judging those from the book of life, right? Written in the books. It's the judgment, right? We're receiving the judgment, whether it be good or bad. You know, and that's for everyone. Those who are dead are going to be raised up, right? And those who are alive, they're already alive, and we're all going to be judged. You know, as it says, according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. Now, here we can get Isaiah 3 and 10, right? Say ye to the righteous that it shall be well with him, for they shall eat the fruit of their doings. Right? So that's whether it be good. You know, you're going to be judged according to the good. As for my people, right? And again, yet this is, you know, mainly dealing with Israel, right? This is only dealing with Israel, actually. This is what Isaiah is speaking on. As for my people, children are their oppressors. Salakia. Verse 11, woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hands shall be given him. Right? Now Isaiah was speaking on Israel, but you know, to the world as a whole, this can be applied. The wicked, those who, you know, walk opposite to the ways of the Lord, those who aren't righteous, those who aren't his elect. It shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hand shall be given him. Right? And that'd be, as we just read in 2 Corinthians, that'd be according to the bad. Right? They're going to be the ones who take part in what? Going back to Revelation 20. Verse 13, and the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them. Right? So you know, you have people who died out sea in the waters and whatnot, and death and hell, death, you know, the people who died in hell, going into the grave. Right? So again, people who died. As I said, everyone's going to be brought back in order to be judged. And hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works. Again, as we just read in Isaiah 3 and 10, verse 14, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. Right? So that lake of fire is the second death. The wicked are going to take part in that second death. Right? The first one was by the way of water, right, during the flood in the times of Noah, and this one is going to be by way of fire. Right? It's going to be a flood, but a flood of flames, right, brought to you by the missiles, right, and the lasers and the flames from the Lord's chariots. But as it says, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. How can hell be cast into the lake of fire? I thought hell was supposed to be the lake of fire, right? Isn't that supposed to be a place where, you know, the wicked, quote unquote, the bad people on the earth go to when they die, right, to burn for an eternity? If that's the case, how can it be cast into the lake of fire? Because that's not what hell is. There's no such thing as hell being a place where you go to burn for eternity after you die. You know, the scriptures say that the spirit goes back with the Father. What it's speaking about is the ability to die, right? The ability to go into the grave, because that's what hell is, the grave. It was cast into the lake of fire, right? So that ability to die pretty much died. But for who? Only for Israel. You know, again, as it speaks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, I think verses 50 on down, right? We're going to receive that victory over death. Going into the new bodies we will be given, and the eternal life we will inherit. We won't be able to die anymore, but that all starts with his elect. You know, the rest of the nation is going to take part in that, being reborn in the kingdom. But that's after, you know, they ultimately die again from the judgment, being cast into that lake of fire, that second death. But starting with the elect, we're going to receive that eternal life. So death and hell were cast into the lake of fire because we won't be able to die anymore. So even death and hell for the Israelites received that judgment. Verse 15, and whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. Again, whosoever, right? Not just the 2/3 of Israel, but the rest. If you're not found in that book of life, if you're not of the Lord's elect, right, which was chosen since the beginning of time, then you're taking part in that second death, you know. So I think I'm gonna end it here. You know, Lord willing, this video was edifying, uplifting, or informative in some way, shape, or form. And once more, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham, Rakah HaKodash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect.